Welcome to BloomLiving. I am your host, Thomas DeShooter, former rock musician turned financial strategist, sharing amazing ideas from amazing people looking to up the game of life whenever we can. Welcome to season 3. I'm your host, Thomas DeShooter, the BloomLiving podcast. Today, super exciting guest. We have Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First. Yes, he is coming on, New York Times bestselling author. I'll read his bio in a bit. Super excited to have him. But before we welcome him onto the show and before we dive into the stuff that him and I are going to tackle, I wanted to bring you around to something that I heard this past week, which I thought just matched up beautifully with one of my own money principles. And so the money principle is that money mirrors you. So whatever you have going on in your world, how you actually treat money, how you are organized or not organized in your own financial affairs, whether as a family, as an individual, or as a business owner, money is going to mirror what's going on in your world. And so this quote I heard was, always give money a destination. Money likes to know what it is going into, or it ends up in chaos. I just love that because I have experienced that for myself. I have been in the place where I don't know what's going on. My money's just coming in and going out. Don't have a handle on it, not tuned in, and it ends up in a place of chaos. And believe me, that is not where we want to end up with our money. So Money Mirrors You is really about starting the process of tuning yourself in to what's going on with your money. And, you know, we have some tools that you could use. There's plenty of tools online in order to do that. You can go to our website and get a balance sheet. You can get a checklist. You can start to dial in on where your money is, what your net worth statement is, what's going on with the flow of money. And, you know, one of the things I've heard a lot of over the 20 years that I've now been in the financial services and working as a financial planner is the number of times I've heard people say, I don't even open my statements. And it's usually because either they don't understand them, so they don't really get it when they do open them. And that's valid. Like, they're not in a lot of cases, they're not the easiest thing to read. Or the markets are terrible, so they don't want to see how much their money has gone down if that's the case. And what I prescribe to is that if we're not looking at our own money, if we're not dealing with our own money, then who is? And if you're not, it's going to mirror that. It's not going to be going into the places that you want it to go to. And that, you know, gives us right back to what I heard last week. Always give money a destination. It actually likes to know where it is supposed to be and what it should be doing for you. I know I use supposed and should, but in this case, delegating a destination for your money and having it serve purpose is absolutely essential to having success in the world of finance. And I know that today's guest is definitely going to support that notion through the books that he's written, and of course through Profit First, which I have, upon reading Profit First, that just was like a wow. That was an aha moment for me again in the world of money. And, you know, for me, my journey started years ago with reading The Wealthy Barber, which was all about paying yourself first, making sure that you know what's going on with your money, giving yourself an opportunity to invest and grow your money. And then reading Profit First was that mindset into the business world, to pay yourself first, to make sure that you, the business owner, is being taken care of, that your employees are being taken care of, that you are tuned in to everything that's happening within the financial, what I call the financial epicenter of your business, understanding the flow of money in and out and how critical that is. And so I'm super excited to welcome today's guest. And without further ado, Mike. All right, we are here with Mike Michalowicz. He is the entrepreneur behind 3 multi-million-dollar companies and is the author of Profit First, Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan, and his newest book, Fix This Next. Mike is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and regularly travels the globe as an entrepreneurial advocate. Mike, welcome to the show. It's a great pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's a great pleasure to be here, Thomas. Thank you for having me.
And I love behind you is the catalog of books.
Yeah, the marketing machine that I am.
Hey, I'm really curious. What is? Let's jump into what Fix This Next is. What can people grab from that?
So I am so excited about this. I think this may be the most important work I've done. I mean, it's for readers to decide. But here's a thesis. I feel that the biggest challenge entrepreneurs face is we don't know what our biggest challenge is. So we're rushing to the apparent issues, the urgent issues, the fires that need to be put out. We're constantly moving to all these different issues, but we notice that our business is taking 2 steps forward, but 3 steps back. The reason is we're focusing on the apparent issues. We're not focusing on the impactful issues. So what's Fix This Next is, it's a compass. It's a very simple system that can evaluate any challenge or any consideration you have, prioritize it compared to the other activities going in your business, and tell you this is the one key activity that's going to move your business forward. Concentrate your energies here, not there.
I like that. And what the way you laid that out kind of reminded me of the impact I had in reading Profit First, which was the idea, and I certainly remember this, especially in the beginning of my business, that you're kind of waiting for that deal. The deal comes in, you think you need to spend all this money on stuff, and then the money's gone, and then you're back to trying to find that big deal or, bring in more revenue. Where did that show up for you in terms of like that light bulb coming on? What was that experience for you like?
Yeah, well, in retrospect, or is 2020, right? Hindsight's 2020. I remember my first business. I had maybe $2,000 or something saved up to get this business off the ground. I spent, I think, $1,750 on a logo, and thinking how important it would be to have this amazing logo that no one could care about and no one remembers. And it was a very ego-based thing. And now I'm $250 and panic ensues. What I found when it came to money management, similar with any other issues, is when money comes in, when we have available money, it's our default to look at the most immediate challenge or opportunity. I have the bills stacked up, I got to pay my bills. Or I was considering getting a new logo, I need to market. And I'm making emotional decisions, backfilling with logic, and then throwing money at it. And so that was just one example of how I operate my business, but there's countless ones of that. Ultimately, I had my, I guess, crescendo moment, which is really, crescendo is not the right word. It was a rock bottom moment is probably better. When I'd grown my second company, it was a multi-million-dollar business, which sounds so great from the outside, but I was stressed to cover payrolls, to cover bills. I refinanced my house to make it run the business. And when I sold it, I finally felt like, the solution is not in being running a profitable business. The solution is in exiting. So I started another business with this mentality now of pump and dump. Build a business, grow as fast as you can, sell it off, because that's the only time you're going to make money. And in my third iteration of starting a business, it was a disaster. I tried to grow, pump and dump, didn't work. I evaporated any wealth I'd accumulated in selling my previous companies, and ended up losing my home over it, losing possessions. The only thing I didn't lose was my family, which I'm so grateful for. And it was this rock bottom moment where I lost everything that I realized, even though I had businesses that grew to millions of dollars in revenue, I had no clue what entrepreneurship was. I had no clue around fiscal management. I had no clue around so many of these elements. And it triggered me to become an author, to really investigate my own erroneous ways. I struggled with profit. I wrote Profit First. I struggled with efficiency. I wrote Clockwork. Every book I've written is because I've also experienced it. And I'm trying to fix it for myself and other entrepreneurs that are facing the same challenges.
Yeah, that's great. That's the mark of a true entrepreneur, right? You see something out there that's not working in the marketplace, and so you go after it, right?
Yeah.
You just go after it to try and solve that. I like what you were talking about in terms of just kind of throwing money at stuff and maybe talk a little bit about what the experience of profit first has been, because you guys have worked with so many businesses, and the idea that we have it kind of backwards, that we focus on, when you look at GAAP accounting,
Yeah.
revenue minus expenses equals profit. And so we're sort of wired to work on that thing that tells us we should be working on it next, instead of maybe what's important.
Yeah. And it's, before recording, we were talking offline about how money moves toward chaos and so forth. That concept you have. I have something similar. I believe money is an amplifier of habits, good habits, or in many cases, bad habits. And I'll tell you about the profit first system. But here's just an analogy. If someone has an addiction, I'm just picking a drug addiction, for example, a hardcore drug addiction, and you give that person a lot of money, its chances are it's going to go to purchase more drugs, right? So what money does is amplify the existing behavioral pattern we have. If someone is a major contributor to their community, to their whatever it is, they're a major contributor, you give them a lot of money, I likely will use a portion or a lot of that money to continue the contribution or even amplify it. So what I did with Profit First, I realized that we have established habits that were not moving us toward the outcome we wanted. And the interesting thing is, more money came into our business, we'd actually dig ourselves a deeper hole. Most businesses are natural behavior. We log into our bank account, we see what balance we have, and we use the money to pay bills. So we're selling to pay bills. And the more we sell, the more we justify spending more money, more bills, because we need to grow the business. And so we're saying this infinite loop of sell more to pay bills, incur more bills to sell more, and we're stay stuck in this loop. And these businesses, mine too, gets bigger and bigger, and there's never money left over. The challenge here, of course, too, is as sales grow, we have to realize that sales translates directly to stress, because more revenue, more sales in an organization means you have more obligation. More sales you have, the more you have to deliver to your clients. Well, the more you have to deliver to your clients means the more stress put upon your organization. So increasing sales is increasing stress on the organization. The balance that is profitability. Profitability brings about longevity. It allows you to have inefficiencies and stuff, because the money can sustain you over downtimes. So profitability brings about this tremendous balance. I discovered, and why I wrote Profit First, is that I thought it was actually all us, the entrepreneurs, that there was something flawed in our brain. I mean, we get hundreds of components working. We can sell to our clients, we can market, we can attract those clients, those prospects, and convert into clients. We can deliver our services. We get so much right, but this profit component, what's wrong? What's the core reason behind it? What's wrong with us? And that's when I realized there's nothing wrong with us. We're actually taught to follow the wrong behavior. So the traditional formula, the GAAP formula, stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, says that sales minus expenses equals profit. And the problem with this formula, it is logically correct. You have to have sales. You need to subtract out the money you spend and see what's left over as profit. I understand from a logical basis. From a behavioral standpoint, it works against us, because we're told profit comes last. In fact, it's even in our vernacular. We call it the bottom line or the year end. All those terms say it comes last. And it's human wiring that when something comes last, that's equivalent to saying it's insignificant. Like if I don't care about my family, I say, yeah, my family, they come last. If I love my family, I say they come first. If I have a health scare, I don't say my health is now going to come last. I say my health is going to come first. So it is our wiring that something that comes first is the priority and gets accomplished. Something that comes last, the manana syndrome. And we're told in the traditional GAAP formula, profit is the bottom line, year end, it comes last. So most businesses in practice don't take a quarterly profit, and never. And when it comes to the annual profit, they kind of see, is there anything left over at the end of the year or not? And if not, it's kind of this oh shucks moment, maybe next year, because we're told it comes last. The profit first formula, we flip this. We say it's sales minus profit equals expenses. The mathematics are identical. It's called a variable swap. I move the variables. So logically, it's actually an identical formula. The math is identical. The behavioral component of those is significantly different. So what I'm saying now is every time there's a sale, we immediately take a predetermined percentage of that money, 5% or 10 or 12 or whatever it is, allocate it toward profit, hide away from our business. And in the profit first system, there's other accounts we hide the money or take the money for. So we now pre-allocate it to its intended use. And historically, say if $1,000 came into my business, Thomas, I'd say, oh, I have $1,000 to spend. But now with the profit first system, because we're taking profit first, we hide away that 15% or whatever it is, Now it's not 1,000, it's 150 taken away, it's 850. But maybe also allocate money to other intended uses, like paying the salary of the owner, covering taxes. I may find out the money truly available to operate my business is maybe $300 and not 1,000. And since we pre-allocate money to its intended use, we behave much more appropriately for our business because we work into the confines of what's available for what intention.
Well said. And here's what I find really funny about that is, as I read the book and, having been, in the stock market for as long as I have,
Yeah.
what drives share prices ultimately is earnings, right? Like,
Profit, right?
yeah. Like if you want to sell a business, isn't it better to sell a business that has profit versus, like, if I'm going to buy a business,
Hallelujah.
what am I going to get out of it? That's what I want to know.
Hallelujah. It's so funny. So I didn't get that, but you're exactly right. I thought in my own business that if I just grow the top line, the more revenue I had, that was the attractor factor. And what I realized, because I sold 2 businesses, I had a private equity exit, I had a Fortune 500 exit. And the value was not driven by revenue. Now, revenue was a factor where they wanted to see, do we have residual income, contracts, and so forth. That was a factor. But the biggest thing, it was real simple. They said, is this a cash ATM? Do I have predictability in how much money this is going to throw off? Because if a buyer knows every month we're going to get 20% of the top line consistently, then it becomes more attractive. And the only way to prove that they're going to get that 20% or whatever the number is consistently is to have historical profits to show that you're already doing this. So profit increases the valuation tremendously. A lot of valuations are based upon EBITDA, right? Profit. They take the number and they do a multiple of EBITDA. And so that's what profit is. So it increases the valuation. But here's the other thing, kind of the hidden benefit of increasing a valuation in a private company is when a business like ours becomes a cash ATM, when it's consistently profitable, our desire to get out of the company reduces. Listen, the business is making money every month in, month out. Don't you want to keep it? And if you do feel that way, and most people that have very profitable businesses do feel that way, you're less susceptible to sell it, which makes you actually more desirable. Because now the acquirer has something that you don't want to give up. Values go up. So that's kind of the invisible value amplifier.
Right. Yeah. Like it struck me as like, wow, like why wouldn't I want to have the most profitable business possible? And I can speak. So here's where, here's what I've taken away from just, having been in profit first for less than a year. I put this on my own business, and, I've been in business for 20 years as a financial advisor. Prior to that, I was a rock musician. So,
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Touring around playing drums, there is no profit. You're like, hey, if I got $5, I'm happy, right?
Right. And a beer. Yeah.
But what really clued in for me was I'm actually excited now to go through my banking, and I'll have you talk about, coming up with a game plan around the dates that you want to do your banking. But when I go through my banking now, I'm actually excited to peel out the owner's pay, to peel out my profit, to peel out my tax, because the last thing I want is a tax bill that I can't afford to pay. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's completely changed how I view my business.
I love it.
Yeah. How did you come up with the idea that we needed certain dates to do that? Why is it important to limit how often we're checking our bank account, especially as if you're a single entrepreneur?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is based upon the envelope system and the pay yourself first principle and some other principles that have existed for eons. There's been books written on this for centuries now. And there's I know even personally, so my mother came from Europe when she moved to the US. She brought the envelope system. So I was actually raised under the envelope system. And the envelope system, if someone's not familiar with it, it's physical envelopes, mailing envelopes. You write down the intended use on each one. And then when money comes in, you divide it up based upon percentages into different envelopes. So at our house, I know there was a food envelope, there was a mortgage envelope, and so forth. When my mother went food shopping, she grabbed the food envelope, put it into her purse, head to the food store. And she'd work within the confines of what was in the envelope. And her and my father had volatile income. Like if my mother worked overtime, there was more, and if not, there was less. But they always worked within the confines of the food envelope. So there was always enough, but the envelope told you what you could buy. Either you have a nice, expensive meal, or maybe less so. But that means also that you weren't impeding on the mortgage account. So that mortgage, that envelope was always sitting there ready to go out and, never miss a mortgage payment. This concept, we translated to business. Now, instead of doing it in physical envelopes or on a spreadsheet, what I had to do was set up a system that intercepted our natural behavioral path. Most entrepreneurs, and I've surveyed now hundreds of thousands over the last 5 or 6 years. I speak about profit first. I'll speak to an audience and I'll ask them to raise their hands. And my estimate is about 90+% raise their hands to this question. I say, how many people here do bank balance accounting? What I mean by this is, even though our accountant may say to read our balance sheet and cash flow statement and to read the income statement and dig into the chart of accounts, even though we're told to do that, how many of us revert to a simpler system of log into your bank account, see what your balance is, and based upon what you see there, take action? You got money, you can spend it. If you don't, you panic to sell something. And all, people are candid. Their hands go up and say, that's how I run my business. And most people check their bank accounts multiple times a day. Did that deposit come in yet? Do I have any money yet? What I tell people is, to change our behavior is very difficult. The better or simpler solution is to channel behavior. To change requires me to stop a habit that I've established and revert to, for example, logging into my accounting system and figuring out the numbers and really getting attuned to that. But entrepreneurs have demonstrated over time, and this is true for most of humanity, is we revert to the simpler path, log into our bank accounts. So instead of changing, I say, let's channel. Since we already log into our bank accounts regularly, what we need to do is set up multiple accounts at that bank. So now when you log in, you see, we call it the foundational 5, an income account. That's account 1, a profit account, which we talked about, to reserve payments for the shareholder, the person that started the business. The owner's comp account. This is a normalized salary for the owner operator. If you own a business, but you also work in it, this is your salary account. Next account is called tax. That's the 4th account, to pay for the tax liabilities of the shareholders. And the final account is the operating expense account. So with these 5 foundational accounts, money now will flow into your income account. Based upon predetermined percentages, we allocate money from that income account. That's, I call it the serving tray of cash. Like when we serve a meal and say it's a turkey meal for Thanksgiving or something, you don't just tell your guests, hey, everyone just dive in onto the serving tray. We apportion it to our plates so everyone gets a piece of the meal and then enjoys their food off their plates. That income account is a serving tray of cash for our business. We then carve it up, if you will, into these other remaining 4 accounts. And that's the first step. So now before we spend a dime, we say, oh, we've allocated so much money to profit, so much to paying me, the owner themselves, so much to reserve for taxes, and here's what's left for operating expenses. Before spending a dime, you now have these envelopes and you know what the intended use of the money is. There's more steps to kind of prevent us from doing or crimping on our own system and hurting ourselves, to steal from ourselves. There's ways to prevent that. But the foundational level, you carve up this money into these different accounts at your bank so you know what's available for what purpose before you spend a dime.
Well said. Have you ever, I'm curious, have you ever heard of the wealthy barber?
Yeah.
Because that's
same idea.
Yeah, the pay yourself first mentality, right? The wealthiest guy
Richest
in town.
Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich. All these books speak to this concept. And that, I think Think and Grow Rich may be over 100 years old now. But these concepts go back forever. The only thing I did with Profit First is said, this doesn't apply only to personal finances. It applies to corporate, to business finances. And so we need to modify the system, and as I did in the book, slightly to accommodate how a business owner operates, but it's the same foundational principles that work.
Right. Talk a little bit about the stealing from your accounts, because I can see that would become, if somebody's stressed out, their expenses are too high. And I know that you kind of allocate it as you can't afford your own expenses, then something needs to be done. But
right.
How can you help somebody that's going to start taking from their accounts? Like what would be one of the first things you would like to do with them?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to tell them is they're a human being. That's normal. I'm not saying it's good, but it's normal. And I've been doing this. I started this system for myself 11 years ago because I desperately needed it. But I've only had 41 consecutive quarters of profit distributions, because the first 3 quarters of when I started this, I started stealing for myself. So I too did this, but it unwinds the whole system. Here's how it played out for me is I carved up the money to profit, owner's comp, tax, and operating expenses. I looked at my operating expenses and said, I don't have enough to pay my bills. Now, to your point, Thomas, if you don't have enough money to pay your bills, that's your business telling you you can't afford your bills. If you want to achieve those profit levels and pay yourself, there's something fundamentally flawed in the operation of the business. We need to cut unnecessary costs and amplify margin. That's usually the biggest opportunity, but it's usually a 1-2 punch. So I couldn't pay my bills. So I looked at my profit account and I said, oh, I got some money in there. Let me just borrow from the profit account just for today, and I'll pay it back. Well, I borrowed from it. I stole from it because I never paid it back. And I started to unwind the system. If we take from one account and put it into another, this is where now it's simply a shell game. So what we need to do is hide access to these accounts. So this is the next kind of more advanced step of Profit First, but we remove temptation. What we do is we set up at another bank, and I suggest making it an inconvenient access point. So no online banking, no starter checks, no ATM card. Simply you mail in your deposits, or maybe you drive them over and you deposit it. But the only way to withdraw money is through a banker's check. What we're doing is now when profit gets allocated to that profit account, we transfer that money to the second bank. That transfer, if you do it electronically, can take 3 to 5 days, but at least it's sitting in that profit account at your current bank, and you know its intended use, and you know it's going to be transferred over. So you typically can use willpower, at least for a few days, not to touch your profit account. But then it goes to this other bank. Now it's out of sight, out of mind. So all you have left over, because you transfer over the taxes too, is the operating expenses to operate the business and the owner's compensation to pay yourself. And sometimes people steal from their own owner's compensation just to float the business for a day or two, but that's painful because they're taking out of their own pocket. So they feel the immediate impact. So it's okay to leave it there. But now with the money accumulating at the second bank, it's out of sight, out of mind. People are much more effective at operating with the confines of what's truly available. The other nice thing is we have well over 150,000 businesses that have implemented Profit First, and we have thousands of case studies of varying degrees, single sentences to paragraphs of study. And we see consistently when businesses remove the availability of the cash, making it less accessible, they make better decisions because they don't have the easy solution of just take the money real quick from one account and move it to another.
It's right in line with having people invest on a regular basis.
Yes.
Right. Where the money is just taken and it's gone into an investment. Now getting that money out is you got to sell an investment. You got to wait, trade plus 3 days. And you got to talk to me. In most cases, they have to talk to me in order to do it. And, I know for myself, I pull money out of my home checking account on a weekly basis to go into investment accounts, and it's gone. The money's gone. Right. It's that simple. So I've got, because I have you on this show and I have some clients that have implemented Profit First, I have questions that I want to hear right from the genius himself.
Well, I'm looking for the genius, but okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So here we go. More bank accounts will result in a lot more bookkeeping work. Is Profit First really worth the effort?
Oh my God. So first we need to dispel more bookkeeping work. So like I said, we have thousands of case studies. If anything, it's about the exact same amount of time bookkeeping, and in some cases less. Because here's what happens. It's the only additional transactions are transfers from an account. So in the Profit First setup, typically we do 2 transfers a month, maybe 3, and you transfer money from the income account to the other accounts. So those are transfers. Transfers, it's simple to reconcile. You just see, does the money get transferred, yes or no? So that's it. The money now, though, is pre-allocated to its purpose. So when you use money, you know what account it's coming from. So you can pre-categorize, oh, this is going to be an operating expense because it came out of the OPEX account. Oh, this is to compensate the owner because there's a draw from the owner account. So you actually know what the intended use is. So the bookkeeping time is actually about the same, negligible, or even more efficient. And the other point, is it worth the effort? The question is, look at we're evaluating a little bit of time because you do have to go into your accounting system and set up these accounts. And maybe it's going to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes of setting up some accounts. You do have to go to the bank and set up those accounts. You can do is you can email your bank and say you're coming in, have all the documents prepared for you. So maybe it's a 10-minute visit of signing documents and you're ready to go. So yeah, cumulatively, maybe it's going to be an hour or 2 of your day, one day ever, but that's it. But we put a lot of significance in saying, I can't spare an hour or 2 a day, but look at what we spared all the time before that. Look at your business. Has it not been profitable in the past? Have you not taken quarterly profit distributions? Look at the financial consequences of not doing something. We have had insights into 150,000 businesses, and consistently businesses are not profitable. They're struggling check to check. So the little extra effort is going to take for a little bit of time just to get the system set up. The payoff is massive. It's massive, massive, massive. So there is no excuse to do it. And the fear that it's going to take more time, more administrivia is just not founded in fact.
And I'll back you on that 100%. I know for me now, my accounting, I have a bookkeeper. They have to deal with the, the QuickBooks and all of that stuff and how it looks. For me, I can take a snapshot of the health of my business
Instantly,
in
right?
in instantly.
Yeah.
And I use a credit union. So to your point about time, I literally got on the phone with somebody and they set up the number of accounts I wanted, and they were, I guess, uh, convenient enough that I could go in online and actually change the
Oh,
name of the accounts and put in the
beautiful.
taps. And maybe you could speak to taps, but I actually have in each account the current tap that I'm at for each one of them. So it's really simple for me. I don't have to pull out any other document. I just go online and it's done.
Yeah. So TAPS stands for target allocation percentage. And we have a complementary term called CAPS, which stands for current allocation percentage. TAPS is what you're targeting long term. So say I just set the profit first system and I want to achieve 15% profitability. That would be a target allocation percentage. But it's also unrealistic for some businesses to go from zero profit all of a sudden to 15% profit. We need to make adjustments. We may have to cut costs, increase margin, change things around. But an abrupt change like that actually may be harmful to a business. So in Profit First, we have a rollout process that maybe this quarter we're only going to do 1% to the profit account. And the quarter after, maybe move to 3 and then 5 and ultimately get to 15% over maybe 2 years. Because every time you increase profit, you got to remove it from operating expenses. So the only way is to reduce operating expense is to cut costs or increase margin, meaning there's more money now flowing in. So even though it's a smaller piece, it's a smaller piece of a bigger pie for OPEX, so the OPEX can be funded. So TAPS is what we're targeting. CAPS is where you're currently at. And the CAPS, we just want to continue to increase until we hit our target. It's that simple.
Right. What has been your feedback from the professionals that have gone out into the workforce, started to work with entrepreneurs and help them immensely to turn around their business? Like what are you hearing back from the Profit First professionals in terms of success rates or what it's doing for business owners out there?
Yeah, so some really interesting stuff. And one thing that was totally unexpected, which is the greatest kind of revelation for us. But the first thing is the arc of the experience. So when people get this concept, it's the pay yourself first principle applied to business, and they get it, there's kind of like, oh my gosh, is it really that simple? This could really work. So there's a little bit of disbelief. It seems too simple. Um, but we simply encourage people to try it. I mean, what do you have to risk? What risks do you run of trying it? When people try it, that's when the epiphany often happens. They're like, holy cow, I can take 1% of my profit and the business is cruising along. Let me try 2 or 3%. Then there's this kind of dip. And what we found the dip is now they can't pay all their bills. And remember, if you can't pay your bills, that means your business can't afford your bills. There's been something fundamentally flawed about your business the entire time. You've just been dumping all your cash flow there, cutting yourself off. So you, the owner, are taking an inadequate salary, not taking profit, but the business kind of keeps chugging along. This dip moment is where you realize, okay, my business, there's a flaw in the business. I got to find ways to run this more efficiently for this to work. And sadly, some people abandon it. They say, well, I just can't. So I'm going to continue to live check by check and under the constant stress of not having a profit. The people that realize, okay, now my business is speaking to me. I need to start controlling costs, increasing margin, start coming on the other side. And this is where they catch momentum. And they're like, oh, now I can increase profit to 5 or 10%. They start pushing themselves. And the stories we have on the other side of that, and that arc can be over 3 months, maybe even 6 months. The business, again, on the other side of it, we're seeing them achieve profits that far outstrip their competitors. So the miraculous thing is once you start taking your profit first, your business becomes a profit engine. And some people say, I wish I did this 20 years ago, or I wish I did this from the beginning. So you have to get through that. The revelation, though, and the number one piece of resistance I get, when someone hears about profit first, they say, okay, I get it, but I'm growth oriented. I need to grow my business. And it takes money to make money. I plow it back in the business. This is going to impede it. I can't do profit first until I grow. Well, I tell people, I say, well, what's the intention of growing first, right? And they're like, well, so I have more money coming in. I say, well, why do you want more money coming in? Right? So I can make more money. So I tell them, okay, so the intention of making more is so that you can actually take more, right? They say, exactly. So you want to be more profitable? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay, so you want to not be profitable to get profits? They're like, right. So I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. We need to master the process of profitability and then build upon that. It's like saying, like, I'm going to buy my intention is to never ride a bicycle, but I'm going to buy this high end 10 speed, and I'm going to race in, one of the biggest races ever, but I'm not going to do any practice. I'm not going to get any bike. I'm just going to buy the bike. And I've never gone bike riding in my life, but I'm going to save up to get this big bike. That's kind of this mentality of not being profitable until one day, all of a sudden I'm going to flip a switch and money's going to pour into my pocket. So I want people to get past that mindset. But this was the amazing thing. Businesses that have taken their profit first consistently grow faster than their contemporaries in their industry. And this is what I didn't expect, because we've been told it takes money to make money. Now, let me say, we've also been told that profit's the bottom line in the year end, and I don't believe that serves us. I don't think it takes money to make money. I think it takes focus, intelligence, and drive to make money. And that's what profit first does. When businesses start taking their profit first, they have less money available to operate the business. They have to be far more selective on the products and services that they offer. They can only now offer the ones that are truly profitable. They can't waste money. When it comes to incurring expenses, they can't frivolously say, hey, let's do some Facebook ads because everyone else is. They have to be very specific in what they're doing to market because there's less money to do it. So they become more targeted and they become more efficient at doing a few things. But when you're more targeted and more efficient doing a few things, you go after a specific community. That's called niche specialization. And when you're niche specialized, offering a remarkable product to a very narrow community, you start building a reputation there very quickly. And those clients will often start paying you a premium because you have this extraordinary reputation for that community. So that community starts talking about you. So profit first facilitates niche specialization, which fosters a strong reputation, which facilitates faster growth. So it's interesting how it comes full circle when you take your profit first.
Yeah, that's great. I just sat through last weekend. I'm a licensed insurance rep as well, and so last week I sat through some training and some sales coaching, etc. And I think 4 speakers in a row got up and talked about niche specialization, about knowing exactly the type of business you want and who you want to serve, because it allows you to just focus, just like a bullseye. Here I'm going. Everything else becomes noise that you eliminate. And so what you're saying is that with profit first, because you're so focused and you've trained yourself now to operate your business efficiently, you can make quicker decisions to eradicate things that just don't fit.
Yeah. So, if we look at the Pareto principle, that's the 80-20 rule, right? What that roughly states is that 20% of the activities we're participating in are yielding 80% of the results. So it's the minority of things we do that actually drives our business forward. By taking our profit first, we actually have to focus more and more on those minority effective things. So we're reverse engineering our way to effectiveness.
Right. I have a question for you. In terms of working with a startup, and let's say the startup is self-funding their business. So back to your example in the beginning when you had $2,000 and you put $1,700 into that amazing logo. Do you even remember the logo?
No, actually, I vaguely, it was horrible. I remember it was horrible.
How would you go about implementing profit first in a startup? Because there might not be any revenue yet. Is there just a lot of pre-planning, or how would you approach that?
Yeah. So just take $1 of your own money and put it into your business, or sell something to a friend for $1. And the second you have even $1 of revenue, profit first applies. So even with $1, you can split that based upon percentages. Now I know we're moving pennies, but at least we're getting the system in place. The earlier a business starts, the sooner they establish this new pattern of work. The interesting thing too is businesses that start earlier don't know better. They don't know how the industry operates. And so they can usually do more aggressive profitability settings than their contemporaries because they don't know how the business operates. And then they start working with the confines of saying, well, I want a 25% profit. That's how I'm going to run my business. And so these businesses start achieving more profit and more efficiency because they started from the get-go. So that's the process. And I also understand some people say, well, $1, and I said multiple accounts, there'll be fees. Like the bank will charge me fees. Just to address that one point of resistance is not all banks charge fees. So find a better bank. Realize banks are not public institutions. You're not beholden to use them. They're private businesses, just like any other business. They're a vendor to you. And if a bank says they want to charge fees, just tell them, well, I'm not willing to pay fees. Do you want my business or not? Now they have the right to say, you know what, we're going to mandate fees. So if you want to work with us, you have to pay them. But that shows the degree of interest they have in being a vendor to you. So forget them and move on to a new bank. So this system can be done costless, if you will, with the right bank. And you can even start with just a few dollars in the bank.
Do you have any idea the resistance that I've heard from people about changing their bank?
Oh, that's crazy, but I get it, because there's all these excuses not to do it. Like, oh, I have to go to a new bank. That's going to be a couple hours there. And I pay all my bills out of the one bank, and I got to start paying out of the other bank. And yeah, so there's going to be some transition. This isn't, this isn't a miracle solution. It's not like to snap your fingers and all of a sudden you have more profit. It is a wildly simple solution that works with our natural behaviors and channels us to get there. But the one thing we have to overcome is the groove we're in. Often grooves become ruts, right? We're just so into the routine. And even though it sucks, even though we're not profitable, we're like, at least we know what to do, and go to the bank and get those darn fees against us and not be profitable yet again. I understand that we're so into that groove, it's become a rut for us. We do have to make a little extra effort in the beginning to get our butt to that new bank, start the transfer over, and it's not going to be super easy. But when you start making profit, it is so much better on the other side.
Yeah, people love to stay in that path of least resistance. They
it's
just
very human.
Yeah. And
I'm that way too. I'm that way too. But the funny thing is, I'm so addicted to profit now. I love it. I love that. My wife and I go on vacation on the company's profit. I love that we can do these exciting things because the profit's been stored aside. I love that because how the profit first system works. I know at the end of this quarter, which is, as we're recording this, approaching very quickly, what my profit distribution is going to be. I also know there's a profit distribution reserved for the next 6 or 7 quarters, because how profit first works, the money is always available. Even if the business goes through a downturn, there's a portion of profit coming out. So there's perpetual profits in my future. It is the ultimate dopamine release at the end of the quarter when that big check comes across. But the funny thing is, it's not even really the size. That's exciting to see it growing. But the very first profit I took 11 years ago was $8, a little bit more. I just started the system. I was only doing 1%, and I just started it, and I said, I'm going to follow my own rule. And on the end of the quarter, I took out the profit distribution. Now, you don't take out 100% of the money in there. There's a process that first professionals teach. You take out a portion of it. I took out that money. I did tell the bank to give it to me in singles. I didn't want to have a 5 and 3 singles. I wanted 8 singles. And I fanned myself with it. I went to the local Starbucks, and I'll tell you, Thomas, I had the best cup of coffee in my life, because like for the first time ever, the business just paid for it. There was no credit card or debit card required. This was purely to reward and celebrate me. It's for my enjoyment. And that's what this profit first system is. It's to show appreciation and to celebrate for the shareholder for taking the risk of starting a business. So once you get to the other side of the resistance, and it's really so easy, when you get to the other side of the resistance, the upside is so great.
Yeah. Now, I know you're an advocate of the business owner taking that profit and using it. You can put that profit back into the business, or some of it, if you want to. And I'll give you an example. I have an opportunity to go to New York in the upcoming months and bring my wife, who's my social media guru and produces this show, and attend as a paneled guest for podcasting.
Oh, cool.
And so we've talked about that, and it was like, well, do we want to, because we're going to, take the advantage of being in New York, see a show. Do we want to do that with expenses for the company, or do we actually want to use some of our profit for that? And leave money in the expense category for other things that are going to really drive the business? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to take, our portion of our profit that we're going to take out, and we're going to use it for that.
Yeah. So the word of caution, that's great. And you can do that. The word of caution with profit is when it become dependent upon it, saying, oh, next quarter, some profits coming out. Let's reinvest that in the business. Whenever we get into that reinvest mentality, that's the day profit is no longer profit. It's simply a deferred expense. We put in a profit bucket for a while, but we never took it as a profit. We simply spent the money in the business. And so therefore it's an expense. And then it becomes a crutch. Profit in the most distilled pure version is a distribution to shareholders every single time. Like, Ford, I own some Ford stock. Like Ford, when they send out their quarterlies, the quarterly profit distributions, it's not like they say, hey, we decided, even though we had 13% profit, whatever it was this year, and we sent you some money, we decided we're going to cut down at 11% to take some of that money back from you shareholders so we can invest it. They would never do that, right? And what they do is they simply say, we're rewarding the shareholder for taking the risk of investing in this stock. We are all shareholders. Even if you don't own stock in a public company, You own a hell of a lot of stock in your own company. So you are a shareholder. That profit's primary intention is to reward the shareholder for taking on risk. And then the shareholder can do what they want with it. The nice thing is we're an owner operator. We may say, hey, I want to get that new, Surface Pro or Apple iPad or something. And that's my big splurge on use of that money. I'm benefiting from it, but I'm also going to make an operating expenses to reduce taxes. It's absolutely within the parameters of Profit First to do that. We just don't want this to become a habitual process where really it's kind of funding the business along as a crutch. We want it to be rewarding the shareholder.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's amazing how easily we can trick ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
doing fine.
Yeah, listen, man. I play that game a million times myself. It's like, it's okay. No one will notice. Well, my bank account notices when the money goes away. So, yeah.
How does the pumpkin plan fit into all of this?
So so the Pumpkin Plan was my second book, and what I started to do with the Pumpkin Plan and my subsequent books, and Fix This Next is addressing this, is I believe there's a hierarchy. I call it the entrepreneur's hierarchy of needs. It's a spinoff of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Maslow said in his study of human biology said that the base level we have is physiological needs. Like we need air, water, food to survive, and we will always revert to that base need over anything else if it's not being satisfied. The highest level of need, he said, was self-actualization. Self-actualization is where you live into your defined purpose. And he pointed out that, say, my life's purpose is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. That's why I do the work I do. That's why I write the books I write. But if I'm eating a hamburger and I start choking to death because I'm choking on a hamburger, I'm going to stop writing books. Now it's all about reverting to the physiological need of dislodging that because my airway's blocked. And so we move up and down this hierarchy regularly. Well, in business, there's a hierarchy. The Pumpkin Plan sits at the base. I believe every business foundationally needs inbound cash flow, which is sales. It's facilitated through marketing, so forth, but I call it the sales level. So Pumpkin Plan was written to address sales. When we layer up, it's profit. So once you have money coming in, now it's about retention of money, which we've been talking about. And above that, there's efficiency, impact, and ultimately legacy. But Pumpkin Plan was all about how do you attract a specific type of customer base, the elite customer base, who's willing and desirous to pay you a premium on a habitual basis. And that's the system I teach there.
Ah, fascinating. I love just going back to your last comments on the quarters in advance that you can see profitability. So essentially, you know how healthy your business is. Like if there was a downturn in revenue, you do have a stopgap if it was desperately needed.
Immediately. And it triggers, the funny thing is it triggers me. So literally this happened 3 days ago. So I write these books, but I also have business partners. For each book, I've started a business behind it. So there's a Pumpkin Plan business. There's a Profit First Professionals. Thank you for being a member of it. And we work with Ron. So you've talked with Ron. Ron and I, we were watching our operating expenses, and we see that the amount we fund, the percentage we put in there, the retained operating expenses is dwindling, week after week after week, and it's been on this trend. For the first time, we said it's now to the point where I think we have to reallocate a percentage of profit or owner's compensation to the OPEX count to fund this. And that was a big, hit the brakes. Hold on. We have an issue here. There's something wrong with our operating expenses. So we're looking at what the problem is, and we've now identified it. But we had increasing operating expenses. So the interesting thing is we never needed to look at a cash flow statement. Honestly, I didn't even look at the income statement or balance sheet. I just, by logging into my bank account every day, which I always do anyway, but now having this money split up, I was able to see that we have a dwindling fund of cash for operating expenses, and it was about to impact me. So it triggered an investigation. Profit First is it's a cash flow management system. It's not an accounting system. It's a cash management system. And it makes you acutely aware of the deltas, the changes in cash flow. And so you can act proactively. And we're within noticing that we're back on track and we're looking forward again. And allocations have remained the same instead of making an adjustment.
Right. So that's like being able to just get a pulse on the business almost instantly. And I love what you said. I mean, one of my, I have 5 money principles. One of them is cash flow is king. I've worked with so many retired people and building cash flow plans and having them live into retirement that's like, it doesn't ultimately matter how much your house is worth if you can't afford to actually live. That fixed asset really isn't going to do much for you if it's not putting cash in your pocket.
Yeah, and it's not worth anything if no one will buy it. Like, it could be a $10 million house, but no one buys it. I just visited the Winchester Mystery Mansion. This is a house in San Jose, California. It was built by the Winchester, the gun fortune. And there's a lot of interesting history around it. It's a bizarre house. And it cost, in modern terms, I think $50 to $100 million to build this structure. When the Sarah Winchester, she was ultimately the owner of the house after her husband passed away. She built this house. When they tried to sell it after her death, could not sell it. So even though the house was worth somewhere between $50 to $100 million, it was of no value. And that's, true for our business too, or for cash flow. We look at accounts receivable and say, well, I got $1 million accounts receivable, or $100,000 or $1,000. It doesn't mean anything until the money comes in. Yes, there's an agreement and you should collect it, but it doesn't mean you're going to. So Profit First talks about the indisputable parts of the business. Cash in the bank. Do you have it or not? And that's what we base the business on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. First of all, thank you for your time today. Is there any parting things that you feel like we haven't covered, or any last minute things you want to throw in about Profit First and the value to a business owner?
Yeah, there's one last thing I want to share, Thomas, is I encourage anyone listening into this. I appreciate if you're skeptical. Like, listen, I didn't believe the system would work for me. I did it out of desperation because I needed this, and it has, and it's worked for countless others now, but I can't guarantee it. I guarantee it won't work if you don't do it, though, right? So here's the one easy thing. I believe start with a very small step, and it's really actually 2 steps. All you have to do is set up one account at your existing bank. You can probably do it online, but go set up one account called Profit, a savings account at your current bank, and then allocate 1% of your income into that Profit account. And so that means if $1,000 comes in, take $10 and put in the Profit account, because that means there's also $990 left to run your business. And if you can run it off $1,000, you can definitely run it off $990. But what will happen is you'll start seeing, wow, I can take a cash profit. I got $10 there, and you keep adding to it. And then the confidence will build that maybe you'll start change that percentage to 2 or 3%. Maybe you'll set their other accounts, and then maybe you'll roll it out to the full system. So my suggestion for anyone listening in, if you're even an iota curious, if you're an iota serious about improving your profitability, try it out in a real slow, easy way by saying to that one account, 1%, and watch how that grows. I think your perspective on your business will change radically.
Yeah. And I love that. It's like a little bit of heaven when I look at that and I see, my profit account is growing. It actually makes me feel like there's a couple things. Sure, it makes me feel good because I have that coming in. But what it's really done for me is given me confidence as a business owner.
Yeah.
Like setting up the structure has actually made me a better business owner, where I look at my business far more seriously. I really dial in on the numbers on an ongoing basis now, whereas I never really used to. I'd wait for my accountant to tell me something. But now I feel like, wait a second, this is mine. I get to determine how it's going to go. And that for me has been a godsend. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I love hearing that. And I find that to be true for almost all of us that do it. Me too. It changes our perspective of how we manage money, and we become attuned to it without the need to make extraordinary effort.
Yeah. We've been speaking with Mike Michalowicz, author of Profit First, The Pumpkin Plan. I suggest that you just start with those 2 books right there, and you will find a new groove for how you manage your business as an entrepreneur. Mike, again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thomas, thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me.
All right.
A huge thanks to today's guest and to you for being a part of the show. Now, if any of the ideas or stories did strike a chord with you, then I'd be honored if you would just take a quick moment to do a couple of things. 1, if something in particular did resonate with you and you feel like it would make a difference in the lives of others, then please go ahead and share this through your social media channels. We'd like that very much. And 2, if you are feeling compelled to join in on our ever-growing Bloom Living conversation, then hit the subscribe button and we'll show up every time there is a new episode available. You know, it's not only my goal, but it's the goal of our entire Bloom Living team and community to be the very change that we want to see in the world. All ideas begin with a conversation, first with yourself and then with others. So we welcome your voice, and we ask that you send along any comments, thoughts, or questions. This is Thomas DeShooter, Bloom Living.
I don't want to turn your stomach fast. I don't want to get all mired in tight sentiment. But I think I found me a pocket here. There's pipe bombs floating on my television. My mailbox of bankers warn